technically, it's going to affect Africa, but it might not affect Africa like it's going to affect the rest of the world. Because Africa does not have industries like they had outside Africa. Are you with me? Are you with me? So on land degradation, African leaders failed us. African leaders have failed us in the past, and they're still failing us now. Not all African leaders actually, but those that are supposed to think deep, to be the think tank of Africa, have been taken out by what I would call internal ideological coup or change of guard. So for land degradation, it's a problem we refuse to identify. For climate change, it is a problem we refuse to identify. The political class refuse to solve the problem internally. Well, I'm not the expert in geographical problematic of Africa, but looking at it politically, they undermine, that is, African leaders undermine the possible problem or the possible effect of climate change and land degradation on Africa. So if we want to develop Africa, or we want to see a good potential in Africa and prefer Africa as a future of the world, I think our leaders need to start looking inward to solve problems of Africa. Climate change and land degradation being part of it. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt, Mr. Joy, but I just wanted to ask you this question because you've been talking about the political leaders ignoring certain things that has led to, the climate change and land degradation of Africa. Don't you think the Africans themselves also have a role to play, bearing in mind that farming, which used to be one of the main practices in Africa, has been pushed back because now everybody feels the need to, be in an office, or everybody feels the need to do something else apart from farming. Farming nowadays is being regarded as a poor people's activity. So don't you think that the Africans themselves play a major role as concerning land degradation and climate change in Africa?
Okay. You talked about farming and rural-urban migration. That is what I'm going to classify as. If we take a theory like the modernization theory that talks about taking a prototype that is looking outside and then using a model of development outside to solve your problems. And then the dependency theories will tell you that the problem is from outside, solvable inside. Are you with me? Now, what Africa did, where we lost it was that we were trying to be Western than the Westerners. We were trying to look like them. We started depending on them for certain things in the name of what I call it again, opening our borders, foreign direct investment, and co. So if I were a farmer in the rural area, and my colleague, which we were going together in the rural area, city, white collar job, is being paid some good money, I would leave farming. It's not the same farming, and promote farming to be a good way of making money. Instead, they encourage importation of farm produce from outside Africa. So meanwhile, while you are importing those things, you're empowering them over there, right? You're empowering them, encouraging them to be more farming. You're importing the produce with the help of your government in collaboration with their government. If your government has placed bans on, for instance, rice, which Nigeria is more like the major consumer in Africa, metric tons of rice coming in yearly, and then you encourage farmers, giving them loans, tractors over the years, then we will not need to look outward to the likes of Thailand for importation of rice. The rice farmer over here got tired of farming rice. He moved to the city, white collar job. So I see as colonialism and the two publics in Africa. Are you with me? Of one public is the moral upbringing of a child. Of the other public is the white collar job where you get to do everything you can do: corruption, nepotism, favoritism, all in the name of Western ideology. So what I think happened in between this is that our leaders technically are the reasons why we are where we are. That is to say that the society is the representation of the ruling class. The kind of education you get, if for instance, farming is a compulsory course from primary school down to the university, we would have lots of farmers. Or if technically along the line, you go to school, you studied agricultural science or agricultural or anything related to farming, right? And the government says, oh, you're graduating. You're not going to do a white collar job. Government has the job for you, a secure job without, that is, without government, let's use the word hulabu. Hulabu in the sense that cornering of contracts, cornering of materials meant for farming. If only government had been giving agricultural graduates lands to farm, give them seedlings, what you have again, tractors, tools for farming at little or no cost, because food produce is basically the if I don't say it is the number one need of a common man. Before you start thinking of any other thing, you must think about the material condition of yourself, your tummy and the rest. Like you have to eat, you have to do, food matters. But we encourage more importation over exportation, which has caused a dent in our productivity line. Not forgetting the oil boom of 1970, I think 76 or 73 or so. The oil boom caused a problem in Africa, especially my country, Nigeria. So people were saying the other part of money making, which does not do with more production. So oil boom was like blood money. Everybody wants to go to the city. Everybody wants to work as an accountant. Everybody wants to work as a lawyer, etc. Instead of government should be encouraging agriculture, they were encouraging what we will later understand to be rural-urban migration, where nobody wants to stay in the village anymore. So the old in the village, who were the farmers, started dying. There was no encouragement. And the children who migrated to the cities got so much that the little job in the city could not solve the problem anymore. So we now have what imbalance between who should remain in the farmland and who should ride a car. Because the farmer does not see himself to be someone who can afford a car. There was no encouragement coming from government, the taxes, the basic things they need for farming were not coming through. So who has the power to regulate, which happens to be the government, has failed the common man who is farming.
Right. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Joy. Exactly who has the power to control or who has the power to regulate this issues that are affecting Africa, the common man, as well as the government. Prof, are you there?
I'm there.
Good evening once more, Prof. My question to you, when we started with Africa being a good investment, you spoke about the youth unemployment, and which is one of the things that Africa, one of the issues that Africa is facing today, and we're trying to find out how we can shape Africa in regards to this issue that Africa is facing as a continent for a better Africa. So tell me something. The youth unemployment, most of the time we say that African youth are lazy, or African youth are they're looking at wanting to be like, wanting to be like the other youth, non-African youth. Is it a true statement, or is there another source for Africans youth unemployment? Is there another reason behind Africans youth unemployment?
I didn't get your question clear, so you might permit me to get a headphone so that I can get you well.
Okay, you're permitted.
Blandine, would you like me to take your question in the meantime?
Yeah, thank you very much, Kennedy. But we have one of our panelists that haven't had the time to talk. So after you, he's gonna answer the same question.
No, Blandine. I go right ahead and go to the panelists. I just stepped in because Prof was going for his headset. You go right ahead.
Yeah, Isaac, are you there? You mentioned that you're back. Hi,
yes.
Isaac.
Yes, I'm back.
Right. So my question is, okay, Prof 2 is back. So Prof 2 is back. So we're gonna have Prof, okay, to answer the question that was allocated to him. And then I'll get back to you, Isaac. Is that okay? Sorry for the mix up.
Okay, so can you ask
Prof,
me the question
now?
Yes, I'm getting you 1 on 1,000.
So we are talking about youth unemployment, right? And my question is, we have a lot of people saying that the African youth is responsible for their unemployment, blaming them being lazy, blaming them copying other culture. What do you really think is the reason behind African youth unemployment, and what could be done to remedy this situation?
I think earlier I mentioned the fact that one of the greatest problems of the African society is the education that they receive. They were fashioned an educational system, a curriculum that helps them to get to understand how to read and how to write. They learn how to become like the white man, and they love to sit in offices. They love to be seen in their big offices, seated and giving commands. And to an extent, the African youth is falling in love with such a lifestyle, which is the greatest limitation to his progress. And as a result of that, that educational system pushes young people to actually forsake what gives them what they need and what is their greatest need. And this educational system, as I said earlier, it doesn't provoke the inner person. It doesn't provoke the spirit of a person to become illuminated. This brings me to a place where I want to actually redefine education to you again, like I've always been doing. The word education actually is a deduction from the Greek word, which actually means to educo, which actually means to pull from within, to bring out from inside of you, implying that education has to do with bringing out of the wells of potential that an individual possesses to contribute to the society, implying that anytime somebody says he is going to school, after having schooled, he is supposed to be giving back to the society what he possesses inside. I don't go to school to come back look for jobs. A true educated person contributes to the society from the wells and depths of potential that he possesses in him. When we talk of potential, potential has to do with untapped treasure that is hidden in each and every one of us right now. So each and every one of us carries unrealized projects. We carry industrialized farming inside of us. We carry the genius and dreams, the potential to become great businessmen, industrialists. We carry the potential to become just the best of us. And you know what? In the midst of all that, when the Caucasians developed this academic system for the African people, they knew that if you, who is a genius, because I want to be sincere with you, every African child and every African citizen is a genius from inside of him. But the educational system was formulated to actually stop you from being productive. It was formulated and crafted to hinder you from being creative and innovative. So naturally, it has caused most of us to become parrots, where we replicate, we reproduce what we hear. We are simply echoing. We have become echoes and images of the original. Those who formulated our educational system have formed an educational system that empowers their people to become innovative, industrialized, and become creative. They become thinkers. But Africans are not thinkers. Africans don't think. Africans just love that they should think for them and they want to just follow. And that is where the limitation of the African people is. That is exactly where African people are right now. They are in the place where they are determining to them how their life should be. But you might not know that. Why? You think you are going to school to become somebody better. But the educational system was formulated to make you a slave. Why a slave? You must work to be paid. At least that's the new kind of slavery that has been developed, where you work to be paid. The question is, why don't you pay those who work for you? Instead, you work so that they should pay you. That's where there is a problem. We have become slaves, but this time in a modern system where we are given a token. But let me say something. If I present the statistics on what you do and your employer gives you a token of what you do, you will get angry. But I will have to do that in order to help you. Listen, when we go to work for any organization, any association, any movement, any business, this is what happens. As long as there is a tax called payment, salary, your employer determines your value. Secondly, he does not only determine your value, secondly, such an employer makes sure he gives you 1,000 of what you invest in his business. And so you work and you make somebody rich and great, very powerful, and you go back with the crumbs of your own energy. So at the end of the day, you are the one working, but the person who is your employer is the one getting rich. You think that the salary that is given to you, which is few coins, will make you rich, but it will never make you rich. And that is what a lot of us don't know. We just say, wow, I'm having a big office and a service car. And you are happy about that, not knowing that what you are giving, if you could, in your own capacity, invest in yourself and create something for yourself, you will, at the end of the day, make more than you are thinking. Okay, this brings us back to a place where we get to understand that the life that we live at this particular moment is a borrowed life. That's where I am bringing you. We are living a borrowed life, a life that has been given to us. So we have been programmed to become these slaves unknowingly, and that is why a lot of black people all over the world seems to be underlooked. They, like the Frenchman says, méprisé. They are being despised, not because we are born to be slaves. No, the only reason is that slavery has been programmed in our minds. And as long as slavery has been programmed in our minds, we will reproduce what we are subconsciously from that programming that we had been programmed. We'll be doing it not actually knowing that we are acting like slaves. And when they call you a slave, you get angry because you feel like you are insulting you. No, it is the way you are living. So African youth, we must get to a place where we reshape this particular, we shape the future of our continent by getting back to the drawing board to actually reinvest in ourselves to be able to contribute to our society. That is the only way out, because without that, there is no progress that Africa is going to register. But I believe you and I are the hope of Africa. We have much that we can give back to Africa if we can be able to contribute the token that we possess. What am I saying? In order for us to become great, I'm sure I've already made Blandine to know where our problem is coming from. And so the next, second part of your question is, how do we come out of it? And that is where I am coming back now. If we have to come out of this situation in which we have been buried in for generations, because I'll be sincere with you that it is true that most of our fathers, for example, the Kwame Nkrumahs, actually rose up against the Caucasians asking for the independence of the African people. But what you do not know is that most of them were still Caucasians. You ask the question, why is it that some of them got married to foreigners? Apart from that, the question you might ask again is, how were they actually living like Africans? That is a question that most people will not answer. Reason being that their minds had already been conditioned to be like Westerners, to act like Westerners, to reproduce that Western culture. And they did everything they did, but still they could not bring us to where they saw in their minds. So I'm speaking to the African youth today. If we are going to arrive where we are supposed to arrive, then we must get to a place where we redraw what to be African is. A lot of us here love to call ourselves Africans, but I don't know if you actually know what it means to be an African. Africanism goes back to the culture of the African man. You must identify that. Somebody will ask me the question, in the modern days, how then do we become Africans when we need to interrelate? I'm not refusing interrelation. I'm sure the Chinese man remains a Chinese man, even if it relates with the Americans, even if it relates with the Europeans. What is different with them? They have understood that their uniqueness is what will bring them the difference. And you and I, we must get to that place where we also see that our uniqueness is what will bring us the difference. So, my brothers and sisters, the only difference we can truly make is not found in schooling as per the system of schooling. If we do not redraw the curriculum that actually teaches our people, then I will be sincere with you, we will end up with nothing. We will talk and talk and talk, but still remain the same. So we need to go back to the drawing board. look at the African educational system, and when we get to the African educational system, we can reshape what we are having today. We draw a curriculum that fits with the African people, that actually brings out the African uniqueness, which is what will sell us out there, which is what will differentiate us out there. So we need to understand the African uniqueness. And the African uniqueness is found in the African identity. And this African identity is what you and I are lacking right now. Most of us, we don't have that identity. We are not Africans by virtue of identity. We are Europeans because we are living a borrowed life. We are second to the Europeans. And that is why after everything you do, you can't stand ahead of them. You will still be just a copy of them. So how do we come out of it? I've said, one, we need to redraw the educational system. Secondly, every African youth needs to get to a place where they start investing in themselves. I will remind you of this. When we talk of the GDP of a nation, we are looking at the gross national productivity. That's the word, GDP, gross national G. You say what? Let me take it again. Gross G national NP, gross national productivity. That is what makes a nation wealthy or poor according to the UN. Okay, so question to ask you: how do we make Africa rich? We need to become productive. That's the word, productive. Productivity is found in empowering your capacity. You have, as I said earlier, the potential, and the potential is the capacity that you carry inside of you. Capacity means that when we talk of capacity, we are talking about that capability. Be careful of that. Capacity is talking of capability. So we have that capability in us, which is dormant. And if we want to actually make a difference, then we must get to a place where we get into our capability, we get into that potential, that potent ability that we have in us, then we develop it, then we reintroduce it into our societies. Of recent, there's a young man in my region in Cameroon of 17 years old. He started 2017 in struggling to produce a model plane. And this year, he finished with his model plane at the age of 17, and he flew it in the air. He flew the model plane. Just imagine a young man of 17. He didn't learn it from any institution. It is not an institution that taught him how to do that. He found the capacity in him, and he was able to come out with that. Every child has that capacity. Every youth has that capacity. And when we invest in bringing out that capacity, that is what actually will make us different in our society. So if we want Africa to become a very prosperous society in the future, we must start shaping the minds of our youth today to see themselves as producers, not consumers. We must become producers, not consumers. Consumption is a foreign, misguided path that was imposed on us just around the 80s, because before the 80s, after independence of the African states, most of our leaders were doing everything to push Africans to become productive. I want you to keep that. And as a result of that, there was a time when the African people were feeding the Asians. I remember in my country, we used to farm rice. My grandmama used to farm have great farms of rice and great farms of wheat. She used to rear cattle. And as a result of that, her rice used to be exported to other nations. But today, that particular industry has been killed, and we are importing rice from Thailand, from China, and from other nations. Why? The capacity that our grandparents had, which was actually infused by the leadership of their time, has been killed by the so much desire for riches that has been imposed on our present leaders. They are being corrupted, let me use that word, with money to a state where they choose to declare their nations as heavily indebted and poor nations in order to receive help from the IMF. That is evil in the first place. That is evil, very much evil. And since they are actually imposed to receive donations, grants from the European nations, this has caused them to believe that money is the cure of the problem. When they receive the money, it can't do anything. It rather destroys our capacity to think, our capacity to produce. And it leaves us in a state of dependence where we start depending on them instead of being independent. So the Caucasians have enslaved Africans again economically. And that is what we need to step out of by being productive. I don't know if I answered your question, but I believe that I've done.
Yes, you have, Prof. Thank you very much for that. You have actually extended, you know, spoken deeply into these things. And this is something that is really plaguing the youth today. We want to be different people. We're not. But when you were talking, I was actually, you mentioned the Chinese. If a Chinese goes to America, they still maintain their identity as a Chinese. But it's funny that Africans, once we cross over, we are ready to drop our identities and assume another person's nationality, which is something that's very, very rampant with us Africans. And from then you begin to lose your heritage, you begin to lose who you are as a person. And then at the end of the day, you're adopting someone else's culture, you're adopting someone else's way of living, you're adopting someone else's way of thinking. And it's really something that we need to look into as we are shaping the interests of Africa on our way forward to, you know, a better Africa. Thank you very much, Prof, again, for the contribution. And Isaac, are you there? Hi, Isaac.
Yes, yes. I'm there.
Yes. So we're still going to look at, you know, the issues that Africa faces, because these are the things that we need to talk about if we want to shape Africa's future. And next on the line, we're talking about financial and economic crisis. And my question to you is, Africa, as earlier mentioned by Prof, is the wealthiest continent and the wealthiest stretch of land that you ever find, but yet the deep financial and economic crisis. What, according to you, is the cause of the situation, and how do you think that as Africans that are struggling and are looking forward to shaping Africa's interest, what do you think we can do to sort the situation?
Okay, thank you very much, Madam Brandon. What we have to do to sort out the situation is we have to first know what we have to do so that we can sort out the situation. For example, we have to have the vision of current project. The moment we have the vision of current project from the government, for example, if the ordinary citizen for peace, then as I'm going for the vision of current project, such that when we have the vision kind of the project on the ground, it's when we shall sort out, it's when Then we shall sort.
Right. Can you just give me a minute, Isaac? Please, can everyone mute their mic if you're not talking? Ombati, Ombati, you're on. That's because your mic is not muted. Prof, you're the host. Can you please mute everybody's mic because we're really facing issues here.
I've done that already.
Thank you very much. Isaac, the floor
Okay,
is
thank you very much. So for the vision of current of the project, so we have to look first at the restoring the normalcy. For example, when we're restoring the normalcy, we have to have the objectives. Then after from the objectives, we have to first have the route. Then from the route, we have to first have what? Even the rules on how to handle all those issues. For example, for the objectives, we have to first have to build the trust between all the parties. For example, when we have the trust in all the parties, it is the only way how we can first solve the problem for all the profs that he has mentioned of. Then we have to relay people to work towards the resolution. Because the moment when we air out each and everything, then we have to relay the people to work towards all those resolutions that we have made. As per now, we are airing out each and everything. So that then afterwards, we have to have the committee or other board members to sit down and do out all the resolutions that we have aired out. Then we have to be awareness. We have to create awareness and to let the whole world know what is going on the ground or what is, because for example, when we normally bet on China, because everywhere you go, you find China is dominating. For example, like 2 days back in Rwanda, the Chinese were mistreating the Rwandese. Even they are grabbing the industrial areas. What the president did, he chased away all those people who have been mistreating the Rwandese and grabbing the land. He chased away and he sent them back where? To their home country. That is the only way how we can do what? To be awareness. To let the whole world know.
But my question to you is,
yes.
My question to you is, it's like you skipped the first part of the question. And my first part of the question to you is, Africa is actually not one of, but actually the wealthiest continent. But we find ourselves in a financial and economic crisis. How did we get there?
To get out of the financial economic crisis.
No, how did we get there? How did we become so financially and economic dependent on other countries? How did we, bearing in mind?
You are breaking.
The richest. Africa is the issues. Can you hear me?
Now I can get you. You can repeat the question because you are breaking.
Okay, my question is, despite the fact that Africa is the wealthiest continent that exists, we find ourselves in financial and economic crisis. How did we get there?
Oh, thank you very much. Now I have got to your question.
Thank you.
Now, first of all, we have to first stop getting things from the outside countries, from the outside continent. The moment we rely on all those people or especially the Westerners, there is no way how we shall get out of that financial crisis. For example, we have to first look at the demographics. When we look at the demographics, where you will find that every African is just running away from where. Even though you started creating a small thing, but you want to export that thing outside. The moment you get that thing from your press, try to spread that thing across the continent, such that each and everybody in the continent can pick a leaf from that thing and know the way how he or she can make his or her. It's the only way how we can do it, the only way how we can make that financial crisis be at ease. Then another thing, we have first to look even at the enabling technology. We have to enable the technology. For example, the IT nowadays, the people who have the bachelors and the masters in IT, they're just running away from Africa. They're just moving away, going to the diaspora to look for the green pasture. The moment when someone or everybody gets the knowledge in the technology, then that person set up the satellite in Africa. Like how Prof did this, the Afrimo. For us now, we are happy because now we are moving, now we have seen the green light. It's the only way. The moment when we start all these things and we are the ones handling each and everything here in Africa, it's the only way to handle out the crisis in this state. Then there is another thing, even it has been disturbing my mind for some quite time, but I will just narrate that thing after. Then Prof is the one to answer my question because it is concerning about Cameroon. Then another thing, what we have to do, have to have the urbanization. For example, as I'm talking about the urbanization, you find that in very many urban centers, you find that those people, they are dominating each and everything. Though those things, they have been set up by the Africans. For example, you find an African is having a good an estate. Employing the real Africans is just rushing outside, instead of in the country, in the continent, and they have gained the experience from our schools, from our universities, from our technicals. It's the only way how we are going to fight all these financial crises. Then,
right.
as I'm rephrasing,
Okay.
yes,
Very much for.
I have my question here, but
Isaac, do you have a question you said you want to ask?
Yeah. Kennedy, are you there?
I'm here, Blandine. I'm here. I'm here. I am here. All right, so it looks as though Isaac is, well, I am here, Blandine. I'm not hearing you. Prof, I heard you came in just now. I'm not sure. It looks as though Blandine screen is frozen. She may be having network problems.
That's right. I'm getting you, but I'm not seeing her. I don't know if she's gone off. It's like she's having
All right,
network
sure, not a
problem.
problem.
Yes,
So
she,
I just wanted to make one comment on your comment, Prof, when you spoke about decentralization and when Isaac spoke about urbanization and mechanizing the agriculture and industry and so on. And it's simple. If we were to decentralize, the towns and the cities, then you can have more spread of the urban areas. Brandon, I notice you're back. We just sort of jumped forward. If you want to cut in, feel free. So we're talking about decentralization. So instead of having all of the people from the villages flock to the cities, you decentralize the cities, and between the cities and the villages, you develop towns in and around the way, and so you have overall development of the country. Then the cities do not have to have slums, and it does not have to have the ghettos, and you don't have the farms being killed out because everybody is leaving the country to go to country planning development will know that you can develop the town and the country as a whole to ensure that you have proper planning and proper development. And I think that that would be the direction to go. That is my comment. Blandine is not here, so Prof, so over to you.
Okay, I will say what you just said is really, really important because it becomes easier when we actually stop what we call okay, it's like Blandine just sent a message to you that Kennedy should discuss to talk on the financial and economic crisis in Africa. What is the cause of the financial and economic crisis in Africa?
Okay, I got your question from Blandine. Financial and economic crisis in Africa. What is the cause? So finance and economics is normally done by the economists of a particular country and the finance ministers and the finance planners. But there has to be an overall strategic economic and financial vision and mission for the country, so that the natural resources of the country needs to be exploited and needs to be sold and needs to be converted into finished products. So that if you have that conversion taking place and you are adding value to the raw material along the pathway, along the track, then over time, you're going to make the country richer. And then from a finance standpoint, you can't spend more than you have, because you would then be in a deficit, you would then be in a debt. So that the finance ministers and the economists that are in a particular country, they would be required to do the planning as it relates to resource management, raw material resource management, sale of raw material, diversifying the economy so that the economy is not only an agricultural economy, but the economy would comprise of agriculture, the economy would comprise of manufacturing, and the economy would also comprise of health sectors, education, and then you have private business as being another sector of the economy. If you have state-controlled economy, then you would have a model for state control, and what would that model entail? And finally, then we have the beast, which is corruption. So corruption sucks out of the economy a lot of resources, a lot of money. It encourages inefficiencies and ineffectiveness. And so the entire society suffers as a result of corruption. The entire society suffers as a result of poor planning and poor execution. So that true problem solving as it relates to why the economies are not doing well, why the finance is not doing well, originates because of poor oversight. You have technocrats who are not competent in their individual fields, and so they are not experts in their areas. Somebody may be assigned to a ministry that they're not an expert in. And if you're not an expert in an area that you have responsibility for, then your performance is not going to be up to standard. So it is solvable. It is just that like minds need to sit and to agree on a formulation, on an approach, and need to document the different steps that is being recommended and suggested, and then of course needs to implement. So I hope I would have answered your question, Blandine.
Right, thank you very much, Kennedy. Although I wasn't really there to hear, to pick up everything that you said, but towards the end, I did, pick up a few. statements that really would be focus on the growth of the African nation instead of regarding, looking for aid from out of Africa. So we're going to continue with, the issues that Africa faces, and I'm going to talk to Mr. Joey Michael. One of the issues that we hardly ever talk about, but it's an issue that Africa is facing, is trafficking and piracy. So, uh, Mr. Michael, what is trafficking and piracy, and how do you think, as an African nation or as an African continent, we can look at resolving that issue that is hardly ever spoken about? Because most of the time we concentrate on our economy, we concentrate on the climate, we concentrate on the youth unemployment, we concentrate on, other things, but we don't look at those things that happen on the ground that actually creates an unsafe environment for Africans as a whole, bearing in mind that most of these things are not ideas that are being born by Africans. Then I'm not going to go deeply into it, but what do you think is trafficking and piracy, and how can we as Africans put a stop to this? Could you unmute your mic, Mr. Michael?
Trafficking. When we talk about trafficking, what we're talking about basically the movement of persons from one region to another region. In this case, we're talking about Africa. Trafficking in Africa has been a problem to Africans, but looking at the causes of trafficking in this manner, don't we think that the systemic rot in governance led to the concept of trafficking? Trafficking as qualified by the Western scholars. And then we'll ask ourselves what causes trafficking. We'll still boil down to the political class. If the political class was upright, you will have what we call human capital development. That is, the persons within the African region would have been able to develop themselves developmental ideology. Now, trafficking is as a result of the condition for development is also the condition for underdevelopment. Africa did not just underdevelop itself. Africa underdeveloped itself as a result of the leaders in in collaboration with the outside world in the right time. And if they are not gone into collaboration with the Western world, you see, now Africa is of debt and the mass borrowing from the Bretton Woods institutions and now from China. It's because they saw the rot in Africa and they want to continue the rot in Africa. So if we were talking about trafficking, persons are running away from problems. That is why they are being lied to, that they are being told half-baked truths that, look, when you move to the other part of the world, there are greener pastures. But if the government had been upright, there wouldn't have been the concept of trafficking in Africa. If there had been good human relationship within the African people, that is where I will be referring to the professor's comment earlier when he was talking about the kind of education we were getting. You see, the kind of education we're getting in Africa makes us to believe that the outside world is better than Africa, which is the reverse. The problem we're having now is that Africa sees the outside world as the better part. Instead, we're supposed to begin to see Africa as the better part. So if we have trafficking today in Africa, it's because of what I see as bad leadership prebender politics. I won't use the word dictatorship. I will use the word bad dictatorship. Because if we had dictatorship in governance in Africa, and they refused to develop Africa when they were supposed to develop Africa, it's bad dictatorship. We've seen countries where they have dictatorial system of government and they are moving forward. Ataturk developed Turkey as a dictator. That as it may be. So back to what we were talking about. We're talking about trafficking. Now, people are running away from Africa because they believe the West is the better place. But Karl Marx will say that the material condition of man is what man tries to solve first. So we look at the materialistic tendency of that man running away from his immediate region, which is Africa, to go feed himself outside Africa.
Right. Um, Mr.
Why is he running? He's running away from the rots. He's running away from bad governance. It's because they have made him think that he doesn't have the potential. Hello.
Can you hear me? You're getting you, Joey.
Okay. Now let's leave trafficking and go to piracy too. You won't have piracy if the system did not encourage piracy. We won't have trafficking if the system does not encourage trafficking. Peter Eke once talked about colonialism and the two publics in Africa. You see, at one point we were being taught. Okay. Now let's do trafficking and go to piracy. So you won't have piracy if the system does not encourage piracy. I can hear myself.
Just keep on and talk, man.
Okay, common man believes that the government is good. If the government man does not think he is poor, he will not resort to living in shores to look for greater pastures. So why does the common man think he is poor? It's because of bad leadership. Africa has gotten to the stage of what rentier states, a continent that doesn't produce. And when you don't produce, you establish what we call dependency. And then when you start depending, then you have to believe in the man that has come to traffic you outside. So trafficking is akin to modern what slavery used to be. I don't believe in my government. Somebody is telling me, okay, your daily feeding or the amount you live on daily basis as a Nigerian is just 200 naira. Okay, when you go to Lebanon or when you go to United States of America, you would live on $10,000 per day, forgetting the fact that you don't have the capacity to match the basic American. If only the government over years had been able to build the kind of capacity that will make you self-sufficient. So the African man is running away from Africa because he feels insecure financially. So he follows the path African. Piracy is another problem. I think that is common in Somalia, and we've been having such cases recently in some parts of the Gulf of Guinea and the rest. But what causes piracy is still boils down to the fact that the people don't no longer believe they can make it. So piracy is like saying, oh, there is a source of living on the water. Let's go hijack some ships, man, and let's make some money. So when you start talking about go hijack some ships and make some money, it's because you don't trust in government anymore. You don't believe the government can provide enabling environment for you to strive. So these two causes are as a result of the irreconcilable differences between the tenets that capitalism has established in Africa. They believe they believe we could what I see as Grave Digger's theory of outsmarting one another. So in the course of these cases, the capitalist becomes wiser, underpaying the laborer. The laborer is being alienated from what he has produced. Then the laborer is unable to feed the family. The family members grows to some extent. They want to break away, and there is no source of living. When there is no source of living, you have piracy and trafficking left as options for the common man. That is the only thing that would make him survive. So how then do we solve the problem of shaping Africa when the African leaders or when the political class
Plantain, are you still there?
When the political class is faulty, when can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So when the political class is faulty, you get problems in trafficking and piracy.
Right.
When the political class is not capturing the populace, when the political class is not preferring policies that would, when the political class is not preferring policies that would encourage the regular man, then you have a problem.
Right. So basically,
so trafficking
okay.
and piracy in general is man-made.
Yeah.
It's not a natural problem.
And what you're trying to say is because of the situation that the government has provided for the people, that they resolve to, practicing piracy and trafficking. Thank you very much, Mr. Joy Michael, for that contribution. That was well, what I've noticed is most of your ideology you relate mostly on the government. So it's more like the government has to do certain things or certain measures to make sure that its people don't go out of the way, or its people don't end up doing things that they're not supposed to be done. Thank you so very much, Mr. Michael, for your contribution. Prof, are you there?
I am there. I'm there.
Right. So I have this question for you. The question was actually made for you, although I asked other panelists about this question, but this question was meant for you. And the question is, or it's a statement that I will need you to elaborate on, emphasize on, and tell me what you feel, how just the statement is concerning Africa. And the statement says African values may hold the key to human survival on Earth.
That particular statement, Plantain, is 100% correct. It is not a mere statement. It is a truthful statement. Why do I put it that way? I'm saying that because from every indication, I want to take us back at least in around the 19th century. Oh, I would like to quote somebody whom for a past period of time I've been studying, and by virtue of studies, I realized that his statement that he made actually had a lot embedded in it. That is Lord Macaulay when he, in his speech to the parliament in 1835, when he said to the people that he has not seen any nation that has very high moral values like Africa. When you go to such a statement and deduce the strengths found in that statement, you get to have a confidence, you get to have the confidence that the African culture and its values, because every culture is made up of values. What makes a culture is a kind of values that that particular uh, 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 culture is having. When the values are bad, the culture is bad. When the values are good, the culture is good. And when you look at what Macaulay said, he actually was bold to tell the people that his people that it will be difficult to actually destroy or break down the African people because of the strength of their value system. The value system of the African man is naturally very moral and respects human rights. You see, with that particular aspect of the African culture, he actually came up and said, in order to be able to destroy that particular culture that is having strong value system, uh, you will see into it that this particular cultural values that our society in Africa has was what made the strength of the African people. Is what made the African people creative. Why? Because from the words of Macaulay, he said, the values were backed by the spirituality of the African people. So it means that our values are found in the spirituality that we possess. So the African values are actually backed by the African spirituality. Then he went forward and said, these people have an educational system which is ancient. That is the same educational system that made the great Kemet, strong as they were, to become very industrialized, to become very, very powerful, and actually preserve the world in their time and give civilization to the world in their time. Those are the same values that were handed down from generation to generation until when Macaulay came to Africa in the 19th century, in the early 19th centuries, and discovered a people whom, by virtue of their greed, had actually come into Africa to exploit and started enslaving. And you know, when you go further in it, you get to discover a lot. When he said that, he said the only way to actually succeed in destroying these particular people and making them become submissive and malleable will be by destroying their educational system, which is backed by their spirituality. So to take away the values of the African people, you have to destroy their educational system. And when you destroy their educational system, the only way to destroy their educational system is to take away their spirituality, which implies that it is the spirituality that gives the value system to the African people, that makes the African culture strong. It is the spirituality that actually makes the educational system valuable and actually important. You see, today we have a lot and a lot and a lot of different belief systems that have come up, and the African people have become so mixed up because they were made to believe that their value systems were bad, their spirituality was very bad. So that was the means through which they used in conquering the African people. And when they succeeded in doing that, they actually conquered us. They destroyed our spirituality, our values, and our educational system, and they conquered us. And that was the beginning of our destruction. That is how they could take us into slavery. That is how they could teach us to become like them. That is how they could give us their names. That is how they could make us their slaves. And that is how they could make us a second to them and nothing more. And as long as they succeeded in achieving that particular goal, it is not something that we have to question again. Is it possible that the African people can gain back their strength, which is their value system, which is actually found in their spirituality? Is it possible? Yes, it is possible. Very, very possible. And as I said, if I have to answer the question, Blandine, that you asked me, which is in relation to precisely whether the value system of the African people can become the source of the preservation of the future of the world, of the globe, I will be sincere to say yes, it is the value of the African people or African culture that can actually protect and preserve. So African values may hold the key to human survival on earth. So yes, African values hold the key to human survival on earth, because it actually teaches what it means to preserve human rights. You see, I am shocked and surprised when our European brothers and sisters, the Caucasians, come to Africa and tell us to keep human rights, and they tell you that human rights, one of the human rights that exists is to live like an animal, and living like an animal, which I don't think even animals live like that, that a man should sleep with a man, a lesbian. I don't know where they came up with those kind of names. A man can sleep with a man and they say that is human right. That's evil. That's corruption of the value system of human beings. I don't know whether homosexuality, where a man sleeps with a man, is human rights. They are actually standing and defending and struggling to force that on African culture. When the Gabonese parliament actually stood against such imposing values, or say demonic cultural values that are coming from the West, I discovered that the European Union came up and decided that they will impose, impose some sanctions on some of the persons who rejected this evil practice. I was shocked and surprised. So they are living in homosexuality and lesbianism as their culture, their values, and they call it human rights, and they want us Africans to believe it's human rights. Is it normal that a man should sleep with a man? No, that's not human right. That's evil. That's completely wrong. That's deculturalization, dehumanization. And that is supposed to be, we are supposed to stand against that in every means possible. I don't see how a man can sleep with a dog and they say it is human right. He has a right to make that decision. In the African culture, abortion is a crime. Abortion is a crime. But in relation to the European culture, it is a human right. Is that really valuable? No. So if in case we want to know whether African values hold the key to the survival of humanity on earth, you should see what I am talking about. If you tell the European tell their people to kill their children in the name of human right, and say that abortion is a human right where you can decide to take the life of a child or not, then I have a problem with that kind of human right, because that is a demonic value. And that is where the African people are stronger. And so for those our brothers who are in America and the Europe, who have actually inculcated that demonic culture and value into their system and are listening to us right now, where they tell you you have the right to abort, it is your right to abort, that is wrong and it's evil. So you should not follow such a system. If you do that, you are actually reducing the number of persons that are supposed to be on earth. Some of them feel like they have become gods, where they say the earth is being overpopulated, so we need to depopulate the earth. Who told them that the earth is being overpopulated? that is based on their wrong mindsets. That is based on their greed, because they want all for themselves. But I believe that every human being that comes into earth has a portion of earth that was created for him to possess. And that is your right. So it's the right of everybody to exist. So what am I saying? We, the African people, it is our duty to preserve the future. It is our duty to preserve humanity, because we have what it takes to preserve humanity. But before we get to do that, we can successfully preserve the future of humanity without being able to actually be economically empowered. When Africans are economically empowered, it will give them the opportunity to be able to preserve much for the future. I want you to know this. When we go back to the past, one of the values that our parents added in our lives, I say, oh, let me use our ancestors passed to us and to our parents, was this. Every child that was born in a home had a piece of land somewhere. Question, where are the lands today? Why is it that today it seems as if land is scarce? Is it true that land is scarce? In Africa, we have 60% arable land still untouched. Who owns it? That is why they will do everything to make sure they destroy you so as to come and get it. But it is our duty to preserve our lives and that of our continent in order to make sure we use what is meant for us to be able to preserve the world, in order to preserve our society and to preserve not only our society but the entire world. That is a responsibility each and every one of us needs to carry. So coming back to that place, I will tell you, when we talk of value, values are not supposed to be demeaning. Value is supposed to be that capacity that makes a person valuable. So the values that we inculcate makes us expensive, makes us valuable, not cheap. Any cheap value actually is corruption. And once you add cheap values, you become lesser than you are supposed to be. And I will tell you, the African values are values that act to us. They don't demean us. And if you have been looking down on yourself as an African, it is because you don't yet know who you are and what it actually means to be an African. It is by understanding the value of our culture that we will be able to actually make ourselves different, because the values of the African culture gives the African people an identity, and that identity is the only thing that will bring us to the limelight. So I'll be sincere with you. You can go to school, learn all what you want to learn, become what you want to become, but when you lack value, when your value system is corrupted, you become a useless person. That is why today we have very educated thieves and demoralized persons. We have professors who are well educated, but very poor in value system. And that is the reason why when they appoint some of them to positions of power, the only thing they can do is to corrupt, is to steal the money. They siphon that particular money that is meant for the future generations. They siphon the money that is meant for the citizens. They siphon they actually siphon taxpayers' money into their personal accounts in order to enrich themselves. That's to prove to you how corrupt that person is. That's to prove to you that that person does not understand what the African values are. The African people believe that it is impossible for one to live without all. That's what we call Ubuntu. It is impossible for me to be rich and you are poor and I say I am rich. That makes me more poorer than any other thing. So when we talk of Ubuntu, Ubuntu means I can't exist without you. We can all exist together. And that is what makes the African people different. And you know, that is what socialism is all about. That is what the kind of economic system and political system that is supposed to be propagated by the African people. The social economic system where I don't own it, we own it together. What I have does not belong to me, it belongs to the community. When I say community, that's not communism in any way. It does not mean that I give it to the community. I am simply saying I share it with those who are close to me. I share it with my community. It is not capitalism where I use people to become. No. Socialism means that we together will become. Because if I am alone, then truly I am poor because my having limits everybody around me. And so we need to get back to this foundation to see that is where our ancestors succeeded. When an ancestor, a father had a piece of land, he knew that if he has 1,000 children, these 1,000 children have a share in that piece of land. And no child ever lived in that lack of prosperity. They never knew poverty because they shared what was in their possession. And that is the value that can make the world a better place. When those values are not inculcated in us, we will live a life of, okay, I want to grab it all for myself. And that's the corrupt system. That is what has caused most of our ministers today to steal. I was watching one of the ministers, I think Minister of Health in Nigeria, when he came to the parliament and he was being questioned for how he used the COVID-19 budget. Yeah. This guy actually, in order to escape from the questions, he literally behaved as if he was dying, he was fainting. Why? Because he has stolen the money that was meant for the people and kept it for himself.
And could not be accountable for it.
You see, that's how corrupt most of these guys are because of the European value system that has been inculcated in them. And so we need to go back, remove corruption from the African people in order to let them inculcate the African culture, values, so that they can become prosperous. Yes, you were saying something, Blandin.
Yeah, not to interrupt you. I was just trying to say that since we are at the end of the show, can you link everything that we have spoken about now to the Pan-African Freedom Movement? Because we have a lot of newcomers that are on today. And,
okay, thank you very much. You see, we created this movement, Pan-African Freedom Movement, not because we want to have a group of people just associating, not just because we want to be talking on Zoom, not just because we want to be communicating on WhatsApp, because some people feel like it's a WhatsApp kind of thing that we need to be discussing on WhatsApp. It is more than just that. It is a non-governmental organization that was actually created with a purpose of empowering African youths on how to become self-sufficient and independent, and in order to unite. So because the primary goal is to unite Africans for Africa. I want to bring that again. The primary goal is to unite Africans for Africa. We need to own Africa. We are not supposed to be in Africa when we don't own Africa. We need to own Africa. And one of the ways to actually do that is so that each and every one of us become economically empowered. And when we are economically empowered, there are a lot of things that we will gain. We will take possession of our lands. We will be able to control our land. Secondly, there is another issue that you need to understand. Pan-African Freedom Movement is actually is supposed to be not just an organization, but we are cutting through Africa to be able to awaken the consciousness of every African to a place where we become very, very useful to our political society and to the economic society. How? We need to become a force. Which kind of force am I talking about? We need to get to a place where we become a pressure group to most of these, our corrupt leaders. We pressure them so that they get to a place where they can be able to submit to the youthful leadership. They can give back power to the youth to actually lead their society. And that is one of the things that we are out to do. So when we talk of everything we have been talking, economic, building the future, shaping the future through economics, doing everything we are doing, we just have one thing in mind, want to empower our brothers and sisters so that we are able to take this power back into our hands. The youth, as you are listening to me, you have the right to take the power back into your hands. We have every reason to be able to make that difference. And so, if you have not understood why it is called Pan-African Freedom Movement, is because so far Africa is under chains. The Chinese people are struggling to come and colonize Africa again. The Europeans are doing everything possible to keep Africa under their yoke. They want to keep controlling. So we need to come out of it. And the only way to come out of it is when we are economically strong and economically free. Without any economic strength, we are a lost people. So that notwithstanding, I am sure that you can understand where I am talking from. So Pan-African Freedom Movement has been existing for a while now, and by virtue of the steps we have taken, we have been able to reach out to some level to things. We have farms that we are establishing, and we are going to establish those farms all across Africa, because I'll be sincere with you. We need to get to a place where Africans eat African food. We need to get to a place where we Africans, we export food to the rest of the world. We don't always import. So that is one of the things that we are struggling to do, build a sustaining Africa. And that is why we have, like I said earlier, some farms that we are establishing. We are establishing them across Africa. So far, we've started in Cameroon. We're having 8 hectares. The 8 hectares has climbed to 10 hectares of land that we are using it to do plantain plantation. We are going to be doing animal farming. There are so many things we are going to be doing there. And apart from that, there are other projects that we are carrying across Africa, not just in Cameroon. We are also going to be establishing libraries across Africa to help a lot of Africans to understand Africanism. And there is much that I can just be talking to you right now. You are going to discover when you become part and parcel of the movement. So if you are here with me, listening to me, we have a website that you can go there to register to become a member of the movement. And that website is pafremo.org. So it's PAFREEMOVE.org. So when you go to that website, you click on it, you can go to membership on the menu, and you can become a member of the movement. It is very important. When we do that, our forces together will make Africa the place that we expect it to be. It is a desire that we want to actually realize, and I believe that in our time we can realize that if we work together. It is not something that is impossible to be achieved. Samuel asked a question. Samuel asked a question. He says, looking at how China became the miracle of the century, tracing the crux of their development, raised to to the Chinese Revolution of the 1950s, can we say Africa can adopt workable concepts and functional models as depicted by the Chinese even on our continent? I think yes, it is possible, but I don't understand what you mean by when you ask the question. Let me take it again. You say, can we say Africa can adopt workable concepts and functional models as depicted by the Chinese even on our continent? But that is the reason why we say when we talk of being Africa, it is not all about separating, actually neglecting the world. We are not supposed to separate ourselves from the world. No, that's not what we are talking about. We are part and parcel of the world. There is need for interrelation. I remember the other day when I was talking, I said that what will make the difference is when we start learning from these guys. If the Chinese people are coming to Africa, we should learn from them. What is that? Transfer of technology. They don't come here and impose labor on us and take us to do menial jobs while they just bring their people to do the things and then they leave. No. If they are coming to work in Africa, they should bring their technicians and bring our own together. We work together. We learn from one another. In that capacity, there will be exchange of technology. We'll be learning from them. And we will be able also to get to implement the same things, because I'll be sincere to tell you this. In the 1970s, precisely, I'm talking of my country, Cameroon, we were actually being of aid to the Chinese people. Our president by then, Ahidjo, used to give aid to China. But today I'm shocked and surprised that the same China that my nation used to help is actually helping us now and imposing loans on us, which our leaders can't pay because they are actually siphoning the loans that they give. So we can learn from the Chinese people. We can actually say we have learned a lot already from the Europeans. So that's why we will need the diaspora to come back to Africa and invest in Africa if we are supposed to become the future leaders of the world. It is actually what can happen. So we need every leader, every diasporan who has gone to the diaspora and learned to come back, invest in Africa. We need that with all our heart. So we need the diasporans to be listening to us, to walk back to Africa and invest in Africa. You have more in Africa than you have it in Europe. So we need to work together.
Right. Thank you very much, Prof. I actually indicated that we were going to talk about it on the forum, but thank you for, also taking time to answer his question. And it's on that note, Kennedy, do you have anything to say?
Just to say, Blandine, that as always, today was a fantastic show. We had many, many new guests who joined the show today, and the topics were wide and varied. We spoke about economics and finance. We spoke about decentralization and values, African values, and it was very informative. We were very happy that Jody Michael could join us, and Isaac, and of course, Professor, and all of the guests that we had. Samuel, thank you very much for your question. Vincent, as always, it's great to have you here. So Blandine and I would leave the rest up to you. Fantastic.
Right. Okay, thank you so very much, Kennedy, for that. And thank you to all the panelists, as Kennedy has rightly said, for honoring our invitation this evening. And it has been a wonderful session. And we are gladly saying that, well, I, for one, I'm glad saying that I've learned a lot today, and I'm hoping that we all have learned concerning, issues that Africa is facing and how to shape, the future of Africa, and how we can overtake the issues that Africa is facing as a nation. And not only Africa, but our brothers and sisters out of Africa, and every one of the blacks. Let me put it that way. But yeah, so it's sad to know that I'm gonna say a wonderful night to everyone and a wonderful rest of the day to some of you, Kennedy especially. And yeah, goodbye everyone, and thank you so much. Thank you. I can't even call out all the names of everyone because it was a full house today. There was Isaac, there was Bao, there was Mr. Joy, there was Opoko.
I'm sure we had a great program today, and I want to say it was wonderful. And I thank every one of you who participated. It was wonderful.